Well, I'd like to be able to say good morning, but I really can't do that because it's not a good morning. In fact, I'm going to have to step out as a candidate and say that in my view I'm declaring a state of emergency. And this is why. At the moment, we are at risk for having mass attacks occur at any given moment. Here's why. The Israelis basically blew up apparently more than 3,000 electronic devices yesterday while they were in people's pockets. It's a very important thing to understand. Now, the apparent story we're getting told is that these are all pagers. That may not entirely be accurate. The situation deals with the claims that Israeli operatives got into supply chains and switched out the battery. Keep in mind, this is something that, in order for it to look normal, somebody else would have to be able to open a given device and have it look completely normal, completely unmolested. Well, there's a bit of a problem to that because in order for a device to work properly and not be noticed, it would have to hold a long time charge. If you look on the web, you will find a lot of references to cell phone and electronic devices exploding. And you'll have a lot of people show you different experiments and things that they do to show how volatile batteries can be. Well, yes, you can switch a battery out with another device that looks like a battery that has additional components hidden within the battery. But there's another reality. The other reality basically is that there are ways to remotely manipulate electronic devices and cause the batteries to explode. This means at any given moment, mass attacks can occur anywhere in the world. Here in the United States, you can have people select from lists that have already been stolen and use that as a resource, where you can send out a signal to mass numbers of devices, a spam, as you would, a spam signal that has a little bit extra to it. We have to look at what could occur. Cell phone companies have been broken into banking information, all kinds of information. And there's more to it than that. There are systems that can penetrate right into systems. There are permanent backdoors built right in to electronic chips. The government is liable for it. We have $10 trillion a year, and the government is liable for the damage because they wanted to be able to spy on anybody at any given time. Pre-made lists that have been stolen and circulated worldwide. Who has copies of these? The Russians. Various terrorist organizations have them. The missing component at the moment would seem to be having the exact program manipulation to detonate cell phones. Well, my understanding is this is not exactly the case. Some people with extreme electronics training can do this. Now, on these different types of lists, people's phone numbers are divided, for instance. There's a difference between children's cell phones and adults' cell phones. There's also a different classification between people who are emergency providers, various specialized lists. If people just wanted to target government employees, they could. If people just wanted to target children in schools, they could. A dangerous situation because now the Israelis have basically revealed that mass-scale detonations can be triggered. We need to think about, to the American public, Well, the risks are very high at this point. There's other information pertaining to what's occurred. We're talking about extreme electronics programming and design have been stolen. We already have a floating situation out there. I'm going to cut in right here because I started talking about some of this as it was my morning podcast, and it just wasn't quite coming out right. So I edited some of it up, and I decided, I really need to address this better. Because the reality is we have an extreme brand new threat adding into a floating situation already. And that is, it's plain and simple, that the Israelis have fronted off something. It's a tactic. It was used. It's mass attack on electronic devices. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but plain and simple, to be responsible to the American public at this point and talk about the brand new risks, how everything just changed literally in a 24-hour period, how we have a brand new threat problem. I just have to open my mouth and say, hey, I can't get on board with what some people would say and just ignore it in the rulership capacity. Some people, and they'll just ignore it. And we need to talk about getting Bluetooth for your kids, for yourself. We need to talk about getting adequate blast sleeving. They used to sell it, by the way. It kind of faded away. People didn't think it was really necessary, and at the time it was a big expense considering the odds. But everything's changed in that game. And we have a floating situation in different areas. I can tell you about one firsthand. I can tell you about my situation, where basically recently 14 archive vehicles basically have been lost due to I could say incompetence and dereliction of duty, but I think the evidence is leaning other places now. The reactions of some of these people are improper. When you bring situations to their attention and they want to basically take the fifth and shut their mouth, they're knowledgeable people. They have superior knowledge. They know that they screwed up. And I suspect there's more to it than just that. They have to keep perpetually making things worse, because what was in that archive was a vast scope of categories. Among them, specialized electronic knowledge. I'm really good at electronics. People have heard me talk about this and that over the years, and a lot of people have come up to me and said, I thought that you weren't on ball with that, and you were right on the money. Right on the money. And this is important for us to understand. We have a serious problem with the elections right now. Neither of the major candidates are fit for office. Their report cards are too far out of spec. Too far out of spec. Too many check marks, too many items. That's one of the reasons I'm running for president. Flat out, I'm way better. I got a 240 IQ. I've got the third eye effect, if anybody knows what that means. It used to be a common saying. The ability to read through and understand making the right choices. Because right now we have to make the right choices. Mass attack on electronic devices has become a real threat. In the last 24 hours, apparently more than 3,000 devices were remotely exploded simultaneously. Apparently, they're saying that it was just pagers. That's apparently also, because we're not sure about that. There are reports coming in that there were other devices that exploded, regular old cell phones. And I'm just going to tell you, at this point in time, that yes, I have expertise in electronics, and yes, you can remotely detonate people's laptops, people's computers. You can do these things. So why is the archive also once again coming up to the top of the list? Because the knowledge to do that, to be able to conduct mass attacks, is part of the standard learning process at ultra high levels of electronics understanding, and that's part of what was in the archive. And there are people who have already stolen. They're going to begin unfolding everything that's in those archives. So even though we're not even sure whether the spies are involved, but certainly the people in government don't want to help me. They don't want to help in this situation. We have something terribly wrong with government, because an investigation unfolds the whole story, and the whole story shows a lot of people committing crime. So they don't want to do it. Well, you're in danger. One of the reasons you're in danger is many situations, and like I said, firsthand I can tell you about one of them, here, now, associated with me. That massive quantities of information pertaining to national security have been stolen. An archive has been attacked. The Constitution says that's a death penalty item. A death penalty item. And we have our rulership ignoring the reality of the Constitution. We're talking serious violations of oath at this point. And again, the public's safety is in hand, because people out there aren't dumb, and if they're spies or they're terrorists or they're people that basically just don't care, that are amoral or sociopath, they'll figure out the components of part of what's in that archive. And seeing the Israeli stuff, they're going to go search through again in that archive looking for certain aspects. And they're in there. It doesn't do me any good to lie to the public to protect other people that are hierarchical criminals. I have no obligation to protect them. As a candidate, I've taken a constitutional oath. And again, I'm stepping up to the plate and I'm telling the American public this situation and letting you understand that there's an extra floating danger factor. Your children are in danger. Everybody's in danger. We have to address this situation. If you got kids, you want to use a coffee can, have them put their phone in the coffee can as a stopgap. It's not the best solution, but it'll minimize explosive power in case it happens. You need to get a Bluetooth. You need to be able to have them have a way to use the device to be away from them, preferably about 2 feet would really be good. But the reality of the types and combinations of attacks that could be assembled in a strike list are wide open, and they're massive. We can have 30 million people simultaneously attacked and have their devices explode. This is not a game. This is a very serious situation. We have people in government, they need to be arrested immediately. I can give you their names. Julie Sue, Shirley Weber, the current AG of California, and Kamala Harris, because she's associated to other archival attacks. Arkansas investigated the situation and came to the conclusion that certain officers were harassing my campaign. That means they were also harassing an archiver. That means they're attacking an archiver. These are death penalty items. But Kamala Harris didn't want to prosecute bad cops, dangerous cops, cops that could have been on the payroll of some country. We don't know. But the bottom line is they don't want to investigate it. They're flatly refusing to investigate. So when we have another state investigate the situation and say, man, beyond the shadow of the doubt, these people are lying. These people have completely fabricated a series of assembled written information. They are harassing a candidate at the very least. We are in jeopardy. Your life is in jeopardy with these people at the helm. I've talked about the problems involving the knowledge scientifically of spread patterns of diseases. And as you take cold medicine from the shelf, more people are going to be exposed to a larger spread pattern situation. This means more people get infected and more people die. And it's only been getting worse and worse. And there are people like me that told these people, you can't do this. What happens if a pandemic comes? We're going to have thousands and thousands of people. This ridiculously dumb prosecutor's disease of removing cold medicine off the shelf has spread all over the country. The death toll is 50 to 60,000 extra people died in COVID because we didn't have really good cold relief medication. We have to get cold medicine back on the shelf, or we're going to be looking at an almost guaranteed 10-year cycle, and another pandemic comes in, and it's going to be a death toll comparable to Vietnam again. We've already got a death toll comparable to Vietnam. And it's associated to screwball prosecutors that aren't doctors like Kamala Harris. I don't even need to talk about Trump right now, quite frankly. He had his 4 years. He couldn't pull anything off. And the guy talks like he's some kind of mafiosi, running around with code talk all the time. And most of us are sick of it. We're just sick of it. Kamala doesn't have the skill set. She doesn't have the third eye capability to sort through, listen to experts, and understand what they're talking about and understand the logic. She'll continue to cover up the truth, just like she's always done. I know this firsthand. Firsthand, I know this. As an archiver, I'm in the process of getting ready to get her put in prison for the rest of her life for attacking an archive. It's a major constitutional violation, and I'm sick and tired of people in government ignoring the truth. And I'm stepping up again to the plate, telling the American public, listen, I'm putting the truth on the table. It's atop the table. It needs to be dealt with. Now, do you want someone who's going to lie to you repeatedly when your life's in danger, keep pulling cold medicine off the shelf, massively increasing the death toll, 50,000 people for the next pandemic, comparable to Vietnam? Do you want people who are going to lie to you and not take the right steps to protect you, your loved ones, your children from having their cell phones exploding in their pocket because some terrorist want to come back and punish people yet again another way? And the attacks will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're going to end up having 30 million people's devices blowing up. This is not a game. I need to take a break for a while. My name's Michael Crosby. I'm running for POTUS.